Tonight, we dive into the politics of those who selfishly cling to their thrones like Kanye Mbau does to plastic surgery. Forget the notion of a graceful exit. These leaders are determined to outlast not just their critics, but probably their own countries. We'll journey from the resilient fortresses of Cameroon to the constitution-bending escapades of Zimbabwe, with a pit stop in Malawi, where comeback stories aren't just about redemption, they're about amnesia. And let's not forget the ever-watchful eye of Uganda's Museveni, who's taken to sniffing out conspiracies like a paranoid Jack Russell. Buckle up, because this isn't just politics, it's the second take.
Connection. It's in the human touch, the feeling of belonging. It inspires us and empowers us, creates clarity from complexity. It starts new conversations, unlocks the power of advice, and makes an impact on your life. At Alex Forbes, we pioneer insight to provide you with advice that connects your decisions of today to your impact tomorrow.
Amid whispers about his age and mental sharpness, President Joe Biden, a mere 81 years young, bowed out of this year's US election. But over in Cameroon, the ancient art of clinging to power is still alive and well, courtesy of President Paul Biya. At 91, Biya holds the dubious honor of being the oldest president in the world. And despite the occasional reminder that humans are in fact mortal, he's shown no signs of stepping down. The chorus of criticism, it's nothing new for Biya. It echoes from the frustrated youth, the battered opposition, and civil society groups, all too familiar with the president's frailties. Even within the ruling elite, there's a growing murmur, a not so subtle scramble for power in a succession battle that feels more like a death match. They know that the only thing more resilient than Biya's grip on power is, well, his own impending mortality. But even the inevitable hasn't slowed him down. In response, Biya's administration has dusted off its well-worn playbook, stomp out dissent with a brutality that only a regime with nothing left to lose could muster. The latest victim of this strategy, Junior Ngombe, who's a 23-year-old barber by day and a digital crusader by night. With 35,000 TikTok followers, he dared to urge his fellow Cameroonians to register to vote. A revolutionary act, apparently. Ngombe's outrage peaked when another digital activist, Steve Akam, known online as Ramon Kota, was nabbed in Gabon and handed over to Cameroon in a move that human rights groups have labeled as an outright violation of extradition procedures. Akam promptly vanished. Ngombe, not one to sit quietly, took to social media questioning why the regime invests so much energy in silencing critics instead of, say, actually governing. The state's response? Silencing him too. 3 plain-clothed intelligence officers detained him, whisking him away to the notorious Secretariat d'Etat à la Défense, a place where the word torture isn't just whispered. It's routine. A week later, Ngombe was grudgingly granted bail, but his legal limbo continues, and his crime, the audacity to speak out. This isn't an isolated incident. It's a trend. Dozens of opposition leaders, journalists, and human rights defenders have either been jailed or exiled in recent months. The message from the Cameroonian government is crystal clear. Criticize Biya or the state at your peril. The regional administration in Yaoundé has taken the proactive step of banning potential troublemakers from the capital altogether. It's easier to prevent disorder than to restore law and order, quipped a senior divisional officer in a statement that might as well be the regime's motto. After all, when power is all you've got, the last thing you want is to let a little thing like democracy get in the way. Ah, beloved Zimbabwe. a land where the constitution is often treated more like a suggestion box than the supreme law of the land. The ruling ZANU-PF party, ever so nostalgic for the days of endless presidential reigns, is now floating the idea of tweaking the constitution to give President Emmerson Mnangagwa an extended stay in office. A little legal hurdle like the constitution says he can't, but that hasn't stopped them before, has it? Mnangagwa, the man who slid into power piggybacked by a coup, conveniently finishing off Robert Mugabe's marathon presidency, has already clocked in 2 terms. At least that's what the constitution tells us. But what's a constitution to a party that's had its way with the law for decades? Now, Harare province chairperson has suggested that maybe the problem isn't Mnangagwa overstaying his welcome. It's the constitution for daring to set limits in the first place. So here we are, with some in ZANU-PF arguing that the answer is simple. Just stretch those presidential terms a bit longer, or better yet, scrap the term limits altogether. After all, what's the point of a constitution if it can't be bent to fit the whims of the powerful? But hold on. There's a pesky little detail in section 3287 of the Constitution, one that states any term limit amendment won't apply to the current president. In other words, Mnangagwa can't legally benefit from any extension. But let's not underestimate the creativity of ZANU-PF. After all, the constitution is just a speed bump on the road to eternal power. First, they'll have to jump through the hoops of repealing or amending that troublesome section, and then, as if pretending to care, put it all to a public referendum. Of course, Mnangagwa has publicly declared that this is his last term, but who really believes that? The ruling party is already warming up the masses with chants of 2030 and rallying around the idea that Mnangagwa's development agenda simply must be completed before he can ride off into the sunset. And what's a little constitutional change when the fate of the nation's progress is at stake? But don't let the slogans fool you. This isn't about development. It's about power, plain and simple. Mnangagwa's 2 deputies, Chiwenga and Mohadi, who helped him shove Mugabe out the door, are waiting in the wings. Chiwenga, the supposed heir apparent, might have to cool his jets a bit longer. And if Mnangagwa has his way, Chiwenga might never get his turn. After all, Mnangagwa's inner circle has made it clear that Chiwenga is not exactly the future that they had in mind. But if Mnangagwa does manage to cling to power, it will just be another page in the long, sad story of African leaders who refuse to step aside, dragging their countries down with them. So, while other nations like Senegal have managed to say enough is enough when leaders overstay their welcome, Zimbabwe seems ready to stay stuck in the same old cycle of endless rule. And if history is any guide, the longer a leader overstays, the more unstable things become. Just ask Alpha Conde in Guinea. Oh, wait, you can't, because he was overthrown when he tried to pull the same stunt.
Entries are now open for the second round of Republicane's Bridal Couple of the Year competition. Couples married between 1 June and 31 August have until 30 September of this year to enter the second round of the competition. Another one of the top 10 couples will be chosen from this pool to participate in the final, taking place in May 2025. To better your chance of reaching the final, enter now. To enter, simply WhatsApp #bridal2025 to 085 785 6231 and follow the on-screen instructions or scan this QR code.
Malawi's political stage welcomes back Peter Mutharika, the 84-year-old former president, as the leading man for the Democratic Progressive Party. This is in the upcoming presidential election. Yes, the same Mutharika who once hinted he'd retire gracefully now claims he's the only one who can rescue Malawi from the so-called ruins left by President Lazarus Chakwera. Now, Mutharika's last tango with power ended in disgrace after the 2019 election was so riddled with fraud that it was annulled thanks to the heroic efforts of the judiciary. Who could forget the infamous TipX scandal? A dubious victory wiped clean, quite literally, by a dab of correction fluid. The nation's judges rightly earned applause for refusing to let the country slide into an electoral farce. But now, after some internal battles in the DPP, where potential challengers were conveniently expelled, Mutharika is back, strapping on his armor for another round. His coronation as the party's candidate was more a formality than a triumph. But why let democracy get in the way of a good comeback story? As for his rival, President Chakwera, the man who once promised to clear the rubble of corruption and serve up 3 square meals a day to every Malawian, his record is underwhelming at best. Blame it on COVID-19, cyclones, or even the war in Ukraine. Pick your excuse of the day. The administration's list of achievements includes the reintroduction of train services after 3 decades. But somehow, one doubts that'll be enough to sway hungry voters. As the showdown looms, expect the ruling party to question whether Mutharika has the vigor, both mentally and physically, to take the reins again. But then again, when has logic ever been the driving force in Malawian politics? Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni, friend of the show, has stirred up a fresh pot of controversy by pointing fingers at firebrand Kenyan MP Babu Owino. During a spectacle at State House in Nairobi, where he was busy backing Raila Odinga for the African Union Commission chairperson position, Museveni found time to accuse Owino of dabbling in Uganda's political sandbox. With the gravity of a seasoned actor, he claimed his ever-reliable intelligence services had sniffed out Owino's supposed fraternization with anti-NRM factions. There's this character called Babu. Museveni doesn't speak this well, but he declared, with the gravitas of a man unearthing a national conspiracy, I always see him with anti-NRM groups. I've never accused him before, but today I'm doing just that, he said. Now, Museveni's rare outburst targeting a foreign lawmaker underscores the thin-skinned nature of his administration, which has become increasingly paranoid after nearly 4 decades of iron-fisted rule. His comments reek of a veiled threat to regional leaders who dare to flirt with Ugandan opposition forces, because heaven forbid anyone challenges his endless tenure. Critics have long lambasted Museveni's presidency as a masterclass in autocracy, with dissent ruthlessly quashed under his watchful eye. In a response dripping with both gratitude and sarcasm, Babu Owino took to social media, or the modern-day coliseum of political gladiators, to brush off Museveni's accusations. The Kenyan MP, known for his sharp tongue, gently reminded Museveni that his political views stem from his personal journey through poverty. A reminder that perhaps the Ugandan leader has been too long in power to recall the struggles of the ordinary citizen. I appreciate President Museveni's support for Baba's AUC bid, Owino began, laying on the diplomacy thick. But as a young leader who grew up knowing what it means to go to bed hungry, I have a perspective that perhaps the president, with his decades in power, might find unfamiliar. Talk about throwing shade. Owino's response, while outwardly respectful, didn't shy away from taking a jab at Museveni's governance. The Kenyan legislator underscored the need for leadership across Africa that actually tackles the basic needs of its people, rather than clinging to power like a relic from a bygone era. Owino's parting shot, a subtle reminder that both Kenya and Uganda's children deserve better than what they've been handed by leaders too preoccupied with preserving their thrones. Sound familiar?
Irongomed is a leading distributor, working in partnership with NewMed and WestMed to meet the comprehensive needs of the Namibian healthcare sector. As a partner pursuing sustainable global healthcare, we offer industry-leading medical solutions through our key focus areas, which include pharmaceuticals, orthopedics, ophthalmology, surgical devices and capital equipment, as well as a well-established scientific laboratory division. In healthcare, Irongomed is committed to making a difference. What about you?
Hallo Namibia, ons is by die kus en ons is lus.
Terwyl by die Easter shot.
Okay. Okay, so yes, please, today you make sure that we are fed. Sorry, ek as nie.
Namibia's Justice Minister Yvonne Dausab has taken a bold stand by banning an Israel-bound ship loaded with military cargo and explosives from navigating through Namibian waters or docking at the country's main port. The MV Katrin, which set off from Vietnam, apparently thought it could just casually swing by Walvis Bay before continuing its journey towards the Mediterranean, because nothing says innocent passage like a ship full of explosives. In a dramatic display of international law enforcement, Dausab made sure to remind the Namibian cabinet and relevant ministries of their sacred duty to uphold these obligations. Not content with just stopping one ship, Dausab also called on all African nations to take similar measures, urging the continent to follow Namibia's lead to show its collective displeasure with the Zionist state's actions. After all, what better way to express international solidarity than by turning away a ship? It's the diplomatic equivalent of giving someone the cold shoulder. Namibia's decision, taken on August 26, is perfectly in tune with the global trend of preventing arms shipments to Israel, a trend that's sweeping the world with all the momentum of a hashtag. Now, Namibia, with its history of colonization and oppression, now steps into the spotlight as a champion of the oppressed, drawing parallels between its own painful past as well as the current plight of Palestinians. It's called historical empathy. Now, earlier this year, Namibia didn't hesitate to express its displeasure with Germany's support for Israel in a genocide case brought by South Africa. Clearly, Namibia knows how to pick its battles and is not afraid to ruffle a few feathers on the international stage. Now, Dausab's decisive action is a shining example of Namibia's unwavering commitment to justice, or at least to making a statement that the world won't soon forget. You know, good thing it wasn't the previous Justice Minister Saki Shangala, because there's a chance he would have allowed Israel to dock for the right price. How much does a fish cost before it rots?
E-Ticket, your online ticket solution for events and event marketing, bringing you ease of mind and making sure that your event gets out there. For more information, contact events@nmh.com.na.
So our TikToks of the week come from TRT Africa breaking down the Zambia power shortage crisis and Zambians reacting as only Zambians can.
Zambia is facing severe power crisis, with the country's electricity company alerting the public that from September 1st, many users would have to bear with up to 17 hours of no power supply daily. Zambia Electricity Supply Corporation, ZESCO, said recently that the power disruption, which is locally known as load shedding, will be implemented across the country. Some parts of the nation, including the capital Lusaka, are already experiencing long hours without power supply. On Tuesday, August 27th, ZESCO said in a statement that it acknowledged with regret that some customers, particularly those in Lusaka, have experienced extended power rationing of about 20 hours. In a statement on Monday, ZESCO said it was anticipating a significant power supply gap from the month of September. The company attributes the shortage mainly to drought, which has affected hydropower generation. The other cited factors are annual power plant maintenance and equipment failure due to faults and vandalism. ZESCO said a major water collection facility near Lake Kariba is only 9% full, making it impossible to generate enough hydroelectric energy from the facility. The company added that the power plant at Kariba North Bank risks shutting down by September 14th, further worsening the power crisis. ZESCO has therefore advised Zambians to use electricity sparingly. For instance, the company has advised Zambians to unplug electric appliances that are not in use to prevent standby power consumption, to use energy-saving bulbs, and to schedule power-intensive activities such as laundry and cooking during off-peak hours. According to ZESCO, the peak hours for electricity consumption in Zambia are from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and again from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. local time. In June, Zambia's parliament told the then Energy Minister, Peter Kapala, who has since been transferred to the Fisheries and Livestock Ministry, that ZESCO often breached its own load-shedding timetable. For instance, ZESCO would write on the schedule that power outage would last 12 hours in a given area, but in reality, it would last up to 20 hours. Kapala said at the time he would direct ZESCO to stick to the load-shedding timetable. Zambia has announced plans to import electricity from the neighboring South Africa and Zimbabwe to address the shortage. In early August, the new Minister for Energy, Makozo Chikote, said Zambia would soon procure generators which would be installed at hospitals, schools, markets, and critical business areas.
ZESCO, as a future investor myself, I am deeply disappointed in how you guys are deciding to conduct business. How are you guys deciding to load shed in more than 6 hours? You know what? Do you know I'm serious? Move back. Move back. Sorry. ZESCO, how is load shed in more than 20 hours? And some of you even have the audacity to ask me when I'm coming. 20 hours load shedding. Some of your chargers can't even charge a phone in 4 hours to reach 100%, and you have to ask me where I'm coming. So we should do what? So all of us, we should just be sitting in darkness. ZESCO, be serious. Wapa Switch now is just enjoying himself. Papa Palanka is just turning shit off. God damn! Momo Panga Mongate, think! That's why I see Bwelako, that's where we are not coming. Mutfunza wa Stibwela, we are not coming.
And so, as the curtains close on tonight's parade of political antics, we are left with the burning question: how long can you cling to power before the throne becomes a trap? It's a game where the stakes are nothing short of a nation's future, and the players are all in, whether the Constitution likes it or not. So as we bid farewell, remember that while some leaders rewrite history to extend their rule, others are busy erasing their mistakes with Tipex like Mutharika. But in the end, no amount of autocracy can stop the ticking clock. After all, even the mightiest rulers can't outrun their own mortality, though they'll certainly try. Good night, and may your leaders be a little less desperate for eternal power. My name is Ashwin Berry. That's your second take.